Hey, what's up, guys? Blake from Top Talk Digital, and I want to dive into sales and the sales process and give you guys a couple of actionable tips that you could take on your sales calls. So I know this is an area of opportunity for a lot of people. Some of you have a really extensive sales background, so this may not be for you. If that's the case, skip this video. If not, hopefully these tips will help you guys take your sales calls to the next level and improve your conversion rates. All right. If you haven't already, check out the video that we did, the interview with Marathon Junk Removal. That's an interview with one of my clients who has a really good sales process, and he dives into some good stuff on that video as well. But I kind of wanted to clarify some of those things I went over in that interview and put together a sole video itself that dove into some of those tips and tactics that you can use on the calls. So first thing, and one of the main things that Christian talked about, was actually having a process or a plan in place for your calls. All right. And I know this sounds really simple, but there's a lot of companies out there who kind of wing it on the call. And I'm not saying that you just have a script in front of you, when you're driving or you're on your way transitioning between jobs, or have a sales rep in your company who has a script in front of them. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, I actually feel like that's pretty robotic and would probably have a negative effect on your sales process. But you should have a genuine flow or process in place to structure that call, okay? So whether that be as simple as your introduction, how you greet them on the call, how you navigate them throughout the call, so figuring out where they're located, figuring out what items they need to remove, just a simple process in place that you can follow time and time again, to where you have more of an actionable plan on the call, and you're not just winging it and forgetting about key important factors of things to ask, or maybe you're put on the spot with one thing and you weren't quite prepared for it. All right. So one of the things that Christian had done, and he spoke about in the video, is he had actually kind of rehearsed with himself over and over again that structure to prepare himself for calls, to where he would be in a flow, and it puts him in more of a natural state when he's answering these calls. All right. So process is really important, and having a plan in place. That's the first step. The second step is, within the call, there are a couple things that can be tweaked that can help you have a better success rate. So I was reviewing some calls earlier this week and noticed that one of my clients, they were being a little bit too open-ended on scheduling. And what do I mean by that? So instead of giving the customer an exact day and time that they could come by, or giving them those options, they were asking the customer, well, when would you like to have this done by? And while this seems pretty innocent and a question that's worth asking, a lot of times when you do it that way, what will happen on the customer side is now you have just given them another decision to make or something to think about, okay? And the problem with that is we as humans hate making decisions, all right? And they already have to make a major decision as it is on even getting this job done in the first place. Now you're asking them for a day at a time that works for them, and they have to think about it, either look at their schedule, or even worse, talk to their wife or husband, okay? And that's the last thing that you want at the end of that call is, I need to talk to my husband or my wife, because how many times do those people call you back? Pretty rare, right? So instead, what you want to do is assume the sale, and by assuming the sale, you're basically giving your schedule. So what you would do in this case is, on the call, if you're going over the details and you're trying to get them on the schedule, you let them know, all right, great. We actually have an opening tomorrow between 10 to 12 or 2 to 4. Which one works for you? What you're doing there is you're making it an easier decision for them to schedule, right? So you're giving them the times that you're available, and you're assuming the sale, because you're basically saying, and in their mind, you're basically putting it together that, okay, we are doing this. Let's move forward. Let's get it taken care of. When can we get you on the schedule? Some people, it's going to be very simple. They're going to tell you, you know what, tomorrow works great, 10 to 12. Then you'll have your other customers where you're going to have to navigate a little bit more, right? Maybe they're a little bit more of a shopper. Maybe they're trying to get a quote so they can call the next company. So you'll have a little bit more work involved with some. If that's the case, that's okay. All right. You want to get the low-hanging fruit easily by doing this. Then the next step would be, if you're like, well, we're really just trying to get an idea on price. Okay, From there, that's when you'll start to dive into, if you haven't already, what kind of items do they need removed, where are they located, and at that point, me personally, I would rather give more of a range, all right, for a few reasons. One of them being that we know customers lie, not all the time on purpose, sometimes on purpose, but some of them just don't really truly understand how much junk they have, all right? And what you want to not have happen is you give them a quote, let's say they tell you the items, you quote them at 300, now all of a sudden you show up and there's a lot more items added and they still think that they have that $300 quote, okay? Because a lot of the people you're on the phone with, they don't realize that if they were to add more junk to that pile, that the price would increase. And therefore, if you do it that way and then you show up and you give them an increase in price, they're going to look at it as if you were being shady, giving them a lower price to get in front of them and complete the job, and then raise the price on site, that is an impression that you do not want to give, right? It could put you at risk for a negative review or a negative reputation. So that's why I like range, because I can explain the process, why I'm giving them a range, and protect ourselves from that happening. The other thing that I like about giving a range, if needed and someone's looking for a quote, is that it makes it a lot harder for them to shop your quote to somebody else. Instead of specifically giving them $250 or $275, and then they call the next person who's going to be willing to undercut you at that $250 or $275 most likely. Now you've given them a range. Yeah, that sounds like that'll be about a half truckload between our, 300 to 350, 300 to 375. It's going to be a lot harder for the next company to come in and be like, oh yeah, well, that'll be 325. Okay, well, now the customer who had spoken to you before, if they're getting, if they're shopping, they don't know if they actually came under you or not, because you had that range, right? You might be at 300 and they're at 325. You may be at 375 and they're at 325. So I like range for a few reasons. Those are two major ones right there, to protect yourself, and then also, if they are looking and trying to compete on price, to put yourself in a better position. Usually for most of you guys, when it comes down to if somebody's like that heavily of a shopper and where they're looking for the cheapest price possible, they probably will find somebody who's dirt cheap and it's not even worth your while. But there are some instances where you're going to have a customer who does call and are just genuinely shopping and looking for a fair price, not the cheapest price, and that range will be very helpful for you in closing the job. So, assuming the sale is a major one, this one goes without, I shouldn't have to explain it, but pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, guys. I understand calls get missed from time to time, but I see a lot of you missing calls. A lot of calls. More than you should. Every now and then it's all right. I get it. Especially if you're the one in the field. You got all these things going on. You might even be in front of a customer right then and there when the call came in. I understand that. But, guys, you need to be picking up the phone more often than not. Because every time that you miss a call from a prospective customer, that's another 5-10 minutes, whatever it took for you to get back to them, for them to find somebody else, and for them to assume the sale and schedule before you ever even get a chance to speak to them. So please pick up the phone, guys. I shouldn't have to say it, but again, somebody's going to be watching this right now, and they're going to be like, you know what, Blake, you're right. We're not picking up the phone enough. We need to make that a priority. Trust me, I know somebody's doing it. So if that's you, pick up the phone. All right. Every now and then is okay, but make sure you're trying to pick up the phone as often as possible, or have somebody who can for you. All right. And the rest of it would just be, you have a process in place, right? You're assuming the sale, so you're giving them your schedule instead of asking them. When it comes down to the end, guys, some of you you're not aggressive enough. And I'm not saying you have to be super aggressive on these calls, but you're leaving it too open-ended. Close the deal. They called you for a reason. They have a pain point. Solve it. It's your duty to solve it. That's what you built this business for, is to help them solve that pain point of having that junk and needing it cleared out. All right? So understand that there is a reason that they called you, and at the end, do everything in your power to get them on the schedule. All right? Even if, I know a lot of you do this is something I tell a lot of my clients too, even if you're looking for pictures from them first. So say, for instance, your call process, You like for them to send pictures so you can get them a quote or a range. That's fine. Schedule them first. Get them on the schedule. Make the commitment. Don't put yourself at risk of them either not sending the photos or maybe the photos don't come through. Whatever the case may be, get them on the schedule, right? So, hey, we've got an opening for Wednesday, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, 2 to 4, whatever the case may be. Get them on the schedule. All right, great. We've got you locked in for Wednesday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you send some pictures of what you have for us to remove. And I can get you either an estimate or a quote based off those pictures so you're prepared for Wednesday. If that's your process, and you guys want to give them that quote beforehand to avoid showing up and not closing the deal, that's how I would do it. I'd at least get them on the schedule first. All right? Have the commitment made. All right, now they're in the schedule. There's been a commitment made. Okay, now we'll get them that quote. If they don't like it, we'll remove them from the schedule. No problem. Or we can navigate that to make it worthwhile, whatever the case may be. Me personally, I prefer on-site estimates, but I get it. I know with gas prices rising, it's not optimal for some of you. One way you could go about it maybe is, for larger jobs, of course, go more of on-site estimate. Smaller jobs, give them a quote, right? Instead of wasting our time on an on-site estimate for a mattress, that's not worthwhile. Or you could do it by distance. So maybe for even like a quarter trailer or a half trailer job, something a little bit on the smaller side. If it's local, within 5 miles or so, 5 to 10 miles maybe, depending on how long it takes you and what area you're located, maybe you're more likely to do on-site estimates for someone who's located closer to you, so you're not wasting as much time in gas. But then somebody who's a little further out, perhaps those are the ones you're trying to give more of a quote to instead of doing on-site estimates. I like on-site estimates because I know you're more likely to close a deal once you're on the schedule, but I get it. I know things have changed a little bit. There's, the gas prices, things of that nature. So those are 2 ways that you can navigate that as well. So I'm going to wrap that up with this. Process, assume the sale, get them on the schedule, whether you're giving them a quote or not. And then if you are quoting, I prefer ranges over direct quote because, again, it can protect you from a misbid, especially if it was even their fault. They may still look at it like you did it on purpose. And it also can protect you from competitors underbidding you as well when you have a comfortable range. All right. So I hope this helps you guys. As always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be giving you guys as much content as I can to help you along the way. And if you like this video, give it a like. If you have any questions, shoot them in the comments. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.